Hello everybody, it's me from my channel, and today we are going to be talking about Atlantis City. So, Atlantis, is it real? Is it in the Atlantic Ocean? Is it in the Mediterranean Sea, or maybe the Arctic? Well, there is a place that may very well hold the key to many of the mysteries surrounding this lost civilization. And today, I am going to tell you all about it. So let's get into it.
Don't forget to support us, my friend. Please subscribe to the channel and like the video.
Okay, so first of all, what is Atlantis? If you don't know what Atlantis is by now, I'll give you a quick summary. Atlantis was mentioned by Plato in his works. He described it as a naval power that lay in the Atlantic Ocean, not too far from the Strait of Gibraltar, which is between mainland Spain and Morocco. According to Plato, its people were advanced in science, art, architecture, and culture. They had a strong navy, and they ruled over many of the surrounding islands. However, according to Plato, they became arrogant, and the gods punished them by sinking their entire city into the ocean, where it was no more. And obviously, since it's gone, nobody has ever found any evidence for it until now. Maybe. There have been many theories and speculations about the location of Atlantis throughout history. Some believe it never existed at all. Others believe it may have been based on a real historical event, such as a tsunami or earthquake. There are literally dozens of places that have been suggested as the location of Atlantis. Some of the most popular ones include the Aegean Sea, the coast of Portugal, the Azores Islands, Madeira, the Greek island of Thera, which is Santorini, and even Antarctica. But what if I told you that Atlantis was actually in the Arctic? And I know it sounds crazy. The Arctic is in the North Pole, right? How could Atlantis be up there? Well, I think you're going to be quite surprised once I show you some of the things that I'm going to show you in this video. Okay, so why do we think that Atlantis could be in the Arctic? Well, first of all, the Arctic has barely been explored at all. It is still a largely unknown area. In fact, there is so much unknown in the Arctic that the United States and Russia are currently having sort of a standoff because they can't agree on who owns the resources beneath the Arctic ice. So yeah, it is still an unknown region. And considering the fact that Atlantis was supposedly swallowed up by the sea, wouldn't it make sense that it would be somewhere where the sea has barely been explored? This is one of the reasons why we think that the Arctic could be a viable option for the location of Atlantis. And second, the climate. According to Plato, Atlantis was swallowed up by the sea in a single day and night. He also said that after it sank, there were earthquakes and tsunamis that shook the whole Earth. What if there was a massive volcanic eruption in the Arctic that melted the ice and caused a mega tsunami that flooded the whole area? This could explain why the city was swallowed up so quickly and easily. It could also explain why it is still missing today. The chances of such an event happening are pretty slim, but not impossible. The third reason why we think Atlantis could be in the Arctic is because of something called the New Madrid seismic zone. This is an area in the southern and midwestern United States that is prone to earthquakes. Earthquakes in this area are relatively rare, but when they do happen, they tend to be pretty powerful. The largest earthquake ever recorded in the United States happened here in 1811. It was a magnitude 7.2 earthquake, and it caused widespread damage in 8 states. What does this have to do with Atlantis? Well, according to some scientists, this seismic zone is the result of a gigantic impact that happened in the Gulf of Mexico about 30 million years ago. This impact is thought to have been caused by a comet or an asteroid that was about 6 miles wide. The energy released by this impact was so great that it actually shook the Earth's crust and caused the land to rise up in some places and sink down in others. This could explain why the Atlantic coastal plain, which is an area that stretches from Maine to Florida, is so low-lying. It could also explain why there are so many sinkholes in Florida. So what does this have to do with Atlantis? Well, according to some, this comet impact could have been the same event that Plato described as the destruction of Atlantis. Okay, so we know that the Arctic hasn't always been frozen. We know that it was once warm enough to support a civilization like Atlantis. But how do we know that there was a civilization there at all? Well, there is evidence that there was a civilization in the Arctic, and this is the fourth reason why we think that Atlantis could be in the Arctic. In recent years, scientists have discovered several ancient artifacts in the Arctic that suggest that there was a civilization living there during the time that Plato wrote about Atlantis. For example, in 2013, a team of Russian scientists discovered the ruins of a building that appeared to be about 4,000 years old. They also found tools, weapons, and other artifacts that suggested that there were people living there during the Bronze Age. These discoveries led the team to conclude that there was a civilization living in the Arctic that may have been the inspiration for Plato's Atlantis. Now, obviously, just because a few artifacts have been found doesn't mean that there was an actual civilization there. It could just be that some people wandered up to the Arctic and built a shelter or something, but there is more evidence than just these artifacts. There are also ancient texts that mention a civilization in the Arctic. For example, in the 4th century BC, the Greek philosopher Pausanias wrote about a people called the Hyperboreans who lived beyond the north wind. He described them as being white-skinned and long of life, and he said that they lived in a land of plenty, where the soil was fertile and the winters were mild. Sounds like Atlantis, doesn't it? So could Atlantis really be in the Arctic? I personally think that it's possible. The Arctic is a huge area and it's still largely unexplored. It's definitely possible that there could be ruins of a civilization buried beneath the ice. But I think that even if Atlantis isn't in the Arctic, there probably was a civilization that lived there at some point. There is just too much evidence to ignore. If you enjoyed this video, then you might also enjoy another video that I did on the mysterious island of Atlantis. So check it out if you haven't already. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. And I'll see you next time. Bye.